You have been paying into Social Security your entire working life. Every single paycheck. A percentage taken before you ever see it. The promise was simple. Work hard. Pay in. And when you retire, the money you contributed will be there waiting for you. Here is what nobody told you. The money was never waiting. It was spent every year by Congress on other things. And the people who spent it have known for over 40 years that the system was heading toward a crisis. They knew, and they did nothing. Today, Capital Explained breaks down how America's retirement system was designed to fail, who knew it was coming, and what happens to the 67 million Americans collecting Social Security right now when the money finally runs out. To understand what is breaking, you need to understand what was built. August 14, 1935. President Franklin D. Roosevelt signs the Social Security Act into law. The Great Depression has just devastated America. Unemployment at 25%. Old people losing everything. Poverty among the elderly was not the exception, it was the norm. Roosevelt's stated goal was simple. In his own words, to give ordinary Americans some measure of protection against poverty-ridden old age. The mechanism was straightforward. Workers pay a percentage of their wages into a trust fund. Employers match that contribution. When the worker retires, they collect monthly benefits, funded by the workers still paying in. It was called a social insurance program, not a savings account, not a pension fund. Insurance, a collective safety net funded by collective contributions. But even in 1935, the design had limitations. The original program only covered about 56% of the American workforce. Domestic workers excluded. Agricultural workers excluded. The people who needed protection most were the people least likely to receive it. This was the first crack in the foundation, built into the system from day one. 4 decades after 1935, Social Security worked. More workers paying in than retirees collecting. The system ran surpluses every single year. And here is where the story gets uncomfortable. When Social Security collected more money than it paid out, that surplus did not sit in a vault. It did not get invested in stocks or bonds. It was not saved for the future. It went directly into the U.S. Treasury's General Fund, where Congress spent it. On roads, on defense, on government programs, on whatever Congress decided it needed that year. In exchange, the Treasury gave Social Security a special type of government bond, an IOU, every cent of it, gone. The Heritage Foundation described the trust fund plainly. It is, and I quote, really only an accounting mechanism. There is no cash in the Social Security Trust Fund, and there never has been any. The Cato Institute confirmed the same. When the government needed to provide benefits, it simply spent the surplus on other things, and wrote an IOU promising to repay. Think of it this way. Imagine paying into a pension fund your whole career. You check your statement. It shows $200,000. You feel secure. Then you retire and find out the fund spent your $200,000 decades ago. The statement was just a number on paper. The only way to pay you is to borrow more money. That is the United States Social Security Trust Fund. Not a lie. Technically legal. But not what most Americans understood they were paying into. From 1984 to 2020, Social Security ran a surplus every single year. Congress spent every single cent of it. In 2021, Social Security started running deficits. The IOUs are now being called in, and the Treasury has to borrow money to honor the promises it made. Here is the part of this story that Capital Explained exists to show you. The crisis was not a surprise. Since 1985, every single annual Social Security Trustees Report has warned that the program faces a long-term funding shortfall. Every single year. For 40 years. The warning was the same every time. The baby boomers are retiring. Fewer workers are paying in. More retirees are collecting. The math does not work. Congress needs to act. Congress did not act. The last time Congress made serious reforms to Social Security was 1983, over 40 years ago. A bipartisan deal under Ronald Reagan and Tip O'Neill. It worked. It bought the system 4 decades of stability. And for 4 decades, Congress collected the credit for a stable retirement system without doing the work to keep it stable. Today, the Congressional Budget Office projects the OASI Trust Fund will be depleted in fiscal year 2032, 6 years away. When that happens, Social Security will only be able to pay what comes in from current payroll taxes, which means an automatic across-the-board benefit cut of between 23% and 28%. For a retiree receiving the average check of $2,071 per month, that is a cut of between $476 and $580 every single month. For the 61% of recipients who say missing even half a payment would leave them unable to survive, this is not a financial inconvenience. This is a financial catastrophe. And the long-term picture is worse. The total unfunded obligation of Social Security through 2099 is estimated at $25.1 trillion. $25.1 trillion. That is the gap between what has been promised and what the system can actually deliver. It has been growing every year. And every year, Congress has found a reason not to deal with it. Now, in 2026, here is what actually happened. Trump's flagship legislation, known as the One Big Beautiful Bill, included a popular provision, a new $6,000 tax deduction for seniors aged 65 and over, reducing the amount of Social Security benefits subject to federal income tax. On the surface, money back in retirees' pockets. Sounds like a win for the people the system was built to save. Here is the problem. Social Security gets part of its funding from taxing benefits paid to higher income retirees. By cutting that tax, the bill cuts that funding. The Social Security Administration's own Office of the Actuary estimated the Big Beautiful Bill will cost Social Security $168.6 billion in lost revenue over the next 10 years. And it accelerates the trust fund depletion date to the fourth quarter of 2032, 1 year sooner than previously projected. The Tax Policy Center analyzed who benefits most from the bill overall. The top 20% of earners, those making $217,000 or more, receive 60% of the total tax benefits. An average tax cut of $12,500 per household in 2026. The lowest income households, earning $35,000 or less, receive an average of $150. The people most dependent on Social Security are the people whose retirement security is most at risk from this legislation. Nobody did anything. In April 2026, the Employee Benefit Research Institute published its annual Retirement Confidence Survey. Confidence among workers fell 6 percentage points in a single year. 7 in 10 retirees are worried the government will cut their retirement benefits. Another year has passed without any serious reform. The system Roosevelt built in 1935 to protect ordinary Americans from poverty in old age is heading toward a crisis that has been visible for 40 years. The people who could have fixed it chose not to, because fixing it means telling voters they will get less or pay more. And that is not a message that wins elections. Social Security was not designed to fail. It was designed by people who genuinely wanted to protect ordinary Americans. But between the political incentives to spend the surplus, the 40 years of inaction, and the legislation that keeps making the math worse, the system that 90% of American retirees depend on is 6 years from a cliff, and the people responsible for fixing it have known about that cliff since 1985. That is what Capital Explained is here to show you. How the financial system actually works, who built it, who benefits, and who pays the price.